Okay, let's start it off. So, today I have a new review on the Weber Firespice Pecan wood chips, which were awesome. So, yeah, the first thing that comes to mind about this review is dialects. I know that to me, when I see pecan, I think of saying pecan. But in my travels, when I was in Alabama, I lived next to this gorgeous tree. And the people I met there, they say pecan. And I won't try to uh, speak exactly like them because, we have different dialects. But I always felt like it was, sort of interesting to realize that we have different dialects. So in this review, I will be saying pecan, but at the same time, I know some people say pecan. Anyway, moving on. So, per instructions, let the wood chips soak up water. I didn't do this for a very long time, and they seemed to stick in there for a while. I'm curious as to whether they would have burned even slower if they had been in water longer. Essentially, the reason why you would put the wood chips in water is so that they burn slower. Otherwise, they'll just burn right up, and you won't really be getting like the what do you call it? Like basically, you won't be using them effectively. Anyway, on to the next point I have here in my notes. So, essentially, the meat cooked very well. The flavor from the wood chips was very powerful. The spice that was most noticeable was oregano. I think the flavor from the wood chips and the oregano work very well together, balanced. They complement each other well. Essentially, I don't know why I keep saying essentially, but whatever. What I'm thinking about in this instance is the fact that in terms of flavors, the flavor from smoking meat is going to kind of smother out the flavor from the seasonings, especially the way that I did it was to sort of let my meat marinate for, I don't know, probably like close to an hour, somewhere around there, maybe even less than an hour, and then just at the end sort of baste my meat. I basted it, and it came out pretty good. Like in terms of the seasoning sticking and actually like having some sort of influence in there, it came out decent. And in my notes here, one thing that I thought about was that I wouldn't change the way that I smoked the meat so much, more so as to how to season it. I was thinking about maybe you would season it with like a sauce, like maybe doing like a sauce or like basting a sauce afterwards. And of course, I mean, I could still like use the seasoning the way that I did, but also just sort of thinking about the sauce and everything else. And in terms of that, I think that maybe that might be a good route in terms of like how you would want that to come out or whatever, like between seasonings, as in your traditional seasonings like salts, peppers, uh, you know, herbs like garlic or even oregano, which I felt like was pretty good. I felt like the oregano worked out pretty well. And honestly, in terms of smoking the meat, I wouldn't want to just run right to a sauce in terms of adding flavor. I think that the flavor that came from the pecan and the wood chips was actually pretty good. Moving forward, I like sports, and on another note, I watched a basketball game on TV a few weeks ago, and I really liked the way that OKC was moving because they had good movement, a nice pace across the court against Houston, and yeah, that was kind of awesome. Just watching the game for a little bit. To end, and on a good note, I also wanted to consider this. So, for a score, and I'm going to leave the notes alone because I actually came across an epiphany, so to speak. In terms of a score, I think that these wood chips did the job, and I think that they did the job well. So for a score, I'd like to give the wood chips an 8 in terms of the overall meal and the food and everything. I'm scoring that as a 6.5, and the meal was delicious. However, the reason why I wanted to give it a 6.5 is because I want to leave room to grow and really make it that much better, because I just started using the wood chips and haven't had much prior experience with them. So there's definitely a lot of room for improvement. And yeah, it's been real. I'll try to definitely implement wood chips in the future and make it a part of what I have going on over here. I had the opportunity to grow with a member of my family not too long ago, and that was an awesome experience. I kind of regret not getting the video up for that. We did St. Louis ribs, and yeah, that was awesome too. Just I'll try to keep the content, coming out a little bit more regularly if the weather permits and if my schedule permits and everything else. Anyway, you guys have a awesome weekend, and it was great, doing this video tonight.